Sometimes working together has been the kind of end game in itself. That's not a successful way to do things. This is an opportunity where we can really work well together because we have a real problem to tackle and we need solutions. We can gather around solutions and be relevant together. And this challenge is very much about that, trying to tap the different capacities and capabilities from us around a challenge. Let me just give you some background of what we're trying to tackle on this securing water for food. We know, probably all of us in this room, that one of the biggest global challenges is the increasing water demand and water scarcity for food production. About 60% of the agriculture in the world is rain-fed, and 40% is irrigated with surface or groundwater. The reports stating that groundwater abstraction for irrigation purposes has tripled in the last 50 years. That report is most alarming. It is estimated that agriculture in China and India alone makes out 1/4 of the total global water withdrawal. And irrigation is expected to increase substantially in sub-Saharan Africa in the coming years. So there is an important need to increase productivity on existing lands using known, and this is important, using known and develop new technologies and capabilities to improve water use efficiency. And this initiative, Securing Water for Food, is an opportunity for us all to cooperate and contribute around this. And I like to share with you that I have experienced working for the NGO sector as well as the business sector. I have a background in Save the Children and Red Cross and now SIDA. And there's a lot of ways that we can work together, but this is really, I think, a very exciting new approach where this methodology that where we challenge entrepreneurs and innovators to come forward with solutions to a problem, it's not all new, but it's very special. And we, the development actors, are working together using our different tools and resources to leverage financial and other resources from the private sector. So we see ourselves not as the solution in itself. We see ourselves as the catalyst for change, the catalyst for the private sector and others to come to the table with solutions. And we think that this is a much more sustainable model for development than working in silos with different methodologies, not knowing how to combine them and really leverage solutions. We have done this together with USAID in other challenges around powering agriculture and making all voices count. USAID has five grand challenges up and running. So it's not that we are very new to this methodology, but around this issue, this is really a new way of getting together around a huge problem. So now in this workshop, we want you to help improve the design of security and water for food. We want your ideas. What do you think are the technological and business model innovations required to address water scarcity? How can we do more with less? How do you think we can best leverage the strength of the private sector to achieve results? I know and I hope that the discussion will really inform us managing this challenge fund. And I also know from earlier meeting that there are a lot of questions around, well, how is this actually meant to be? And I would like to invite Mr. Chris Holmes from the USAID to give a little bit more of a background to this challenge fund. So please take the floor on this stage. We need you on stage because we won't hear you otherwise. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. I think it's tremendous that the Director General of SIDA would have the time, given all the other demands this week on her, to be here, and the commitment. So thank you very, very much. So I thought what I would do is just give you kind of a practical overview of what the Grand Challenge is about, and then there'll be some more detailed discussions. There's a PowerPoint that my colleague Lala Fayez has put together, and she can also go through it. So the background that I think is necessary to appreciate the Grand Challenge is that on Friday of last week, USAID released something known as a request for information. There's a copy of it on all of your tables, and basically it lays out kind of key information on the Grand Challenge, and CETA and AID felt it was very important to be as transparent as possible in this effort. So for the next 30 days, we're seeking comments, and by October 4th, we'll close on that period. In terms of the structure of the Grand Challenge, let me give you a hypothetical example to try to bring it to life. There's a lot of paper for you to read this morning. So let's say theoretically that there is a company in country A that specializes in water reuse and has been successful in this area in the field of water reuse and efficiency, has been able to operate perhaps at scale, and now wants to operate hypothetically in East Africa. But is somewhat uneasy about how to go about that, although the company has had in-country presence in East Africa through one of its affiliates. And the company happens to have a good commitment to sustainability, to meeting the needs of the poor at the same time, so its values are lined up with the values that we all share. And under the Grand Challenge, the company would be submitting a response to a call that we will formally release to the public on November 4th. And that call will be alive from November 4th, roughly until the middle of January of 2014. And in the call, we will be seeking companies, organizations, nonprofits, profits that basically have proven technologies, want to transfer those technologies and set up an operation in another part of the world. The range of funding in the call will be roughly $15 million. And the range of individual grants will be in the range of $300,000 to $3 million. But the funding is on a cost-sharing basis, so it's roughly 50-50. There may be some flexibility there on the margin, but I don't think anything more than 10%. And so hypothetically, if the company is awarded a grant in the range of $500,000, we would expect the company would be contributing roughly $500,000 to the endeavor. What's significant about this is not just the partnering and the desire to transfer proven technologies to another country, proven approaches, but what's also significant is the commitment that CETA and the USAID have to really staying with the entity that receives the award and enters into the partnership with us. So it's not like a partnership where, we've gone to the partnership and we're kind of standing back and you're working, but rather we're engaged in the sense of helping you accelerate your progress in the developing country into which you operate. So we'll be launching an accelerator program, which is what we call it, that basically enables an organization to get through some of the bottlenecks that they might encounter in the putting together of an operation. So, for example, it may turn out that both CETA and USAID has played a major role in developing the capacity of a ministry or developing the regulatory structure in a country or in a region. And we would have knowledge as to how to facilitate progress in working through problems related to a specific organization, a specific procedure. And it may be that there are some very technical questions that an organization faces regarding supply chain, value chain, distribution networks. And through individuals that we would link into this accelerator program, they would work with the organization. So you definitely are not left on your own, because our commitment is to help you accelerate progress as you move through the overall process. So that's the general flow of how this will all roll out. The expectation is that after we issue the call in January of 2014, we'd like very much to conclude the call by and make an award by, let's say, July of 2014, which would be great because that would mean that before a year has elapsed, and we're here again, that organizations would be selected to address these grand challenges. Now, as to the challenge itself, you know, the title of the challenge is Securing Water for Food. That's a very, very broad subject. And what we're really interested in is how do you overcome specific barriers that impede reducing the scarcity of water for food in the developing world. And that, too, is exceptionally broad. And we and CETA have worked closely together for almost a year in identifying 3 barriers. And those barriers, which are outlined in the materials on the table today, deal with water reuse and efficiency, water capture and storage, and salinity, particularly salinity in coastal areas which experience tremendous saltwater intrusion, and that in turn impedes production as well as human consumption. The other thing that I think is unique about the Grand Challenge is this is not a call, this kind of your standard government call where the government says, you know, we have a problem, we've got the solution, we'd like to see how well you will do at proposing ways in which to implement the solution that we're laying out in the call. In this case, we're saying no. We're saying we have a problem, which is there's a problem of water related to food. We see barriers related to decreasing water scarcity, and these are the 3 barriers. And we'd like you to tell us what you think are the solutions to addressing these barriers by essentially transferring the great work you've done in one part of the world and applying it in a developing world context. So that's the general flow of the way in which we work. You know, we're absolutely thrilled to have organizations and individuals of the caliber that are sitting around the tables today, and we really look forward to a productive morning, and thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ann-Charlotte Malm, and I am working for CETA, and I and my colleagues have been working with USAID the past 6 or 7 months to develop this initiative. And I just want to underline a few things that I think is very important with this initiative. And this is that securing Water for Food is a new and it's a bit different program that is complementary to other already existing development efforts. And why do we say that it's different? Well, it is designed to address a specific barriers of the global challenge of water scarcity. So the focus of the program is to find and accelerate the best technology and business models from innovators around the whole world to produce more food with less water. And the model we are using is the Challenge Fund model. That means that we will put out a challenge in the form of a call for proposals to innovators and entrepreneurs. And the challenge is for the entrepreneurs to come forward with their solutions and apply for funding for accelerating and scale their solutions. And we will then ask them to match our funding. But capital is not enough for an entrepreneur to accelerate and scale. Securing Water for Food will therefore also give technical and advisory support and act as a broker for establishing contacts between the entrepreneurs and larger companies active or interested in the water sector. And this is a partnership. We cannot do this alone. So far, it is CETA and USAID that is working on this, but we are looking for more partners, and we are looking for your assistance and help to develop this program to be a success. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. This will help us a lot to continue to develop the program. And I will give now the floor to Lala, my colleague from United States, from USAID.
Thank you, Ann-Charlotte. So, if we could go on to the next slide. Chris, you've stolen my speech, so I'll just reiterate some of the points that were made. There are 3 areas that we're focusing on: salinity, water capture and storage, and water reuse and efficiency. We are looking for solutions that really are at that nexus of water and food security. So what are we really doing here, and how are these challenge funds constructed? One, we source the innovators. So as Chris mentioned, a lot of time has been spent kind of honing in on those 3 problem areas. We've done barrier analysis, and we've done a state of innovation analysis, and based on all of that, those are the 3 barriers that we've defined. Then we have this global call to source innovations, and as you can see on the tables, that call is there, and we've opened it up for comment. After that, we select the best innovators and entrepreneurs, and we do this with a diverse panel of judges. We have a rigorous evaluation criteria, and we'd actually like your comments and your thoughts on that. And then we have a process of continuous screening and selection, and we think that this is really important because we have money to give, and we are providing grant financing, which has to be matched with outside market-based financing. But we think it's important that we just don't give our money away, and that certain benchmarks and targets are met and continue to be met throughout the process and the timeline of our grant. And after that, as has been mentioned, we fund and accelerate these entrepreneurs. So we're not just providing financial support, but we're providing in-kind support. And that's why a lot of you are here in the room today. We're targeting innovators, we're targeting entrepreneurs and SMEs, but we know that they can't do this alone. And so we need your help and your guidance in helping them understand how they will reach the communities that they really intend to target. How will they generate demand for their products? How do we create the innovative kind of financial mechanisms that enable them to do the work that they need to do in the field? And in addition to that, we've also realized that we need to have a lot of PR support, shed the light on these innovators. And so that's a fundamental component of the program. So next steps, Chris also talked about this. We launched yesterday. We've opened up the call for innovation. It will be open for a month for comment. We hope that we get a lot of comments and insights and suggestions from you both today and after today. The comment period closes October 4th. Applications open November 4th. And applications close January 15th. And I'd just like to reiterate that this is a $25 million program in all. This is the first call. The first call is $15 million. And so on that note, I'll just pass it over to Tamara, who will lead the discussion today.
Hi, my name is Tamara. I've been very privileged to work with USAID and CETA on the design of securing water for food. This has been very much a collaborative effort from the beginning. And through this conversation today, we're continuing that spirit of collaboration by asking for everyone's ideas and inputs on how we can make this program more responsive and ultimately successful for everyone in this room and everybody that we want to work with. I'm actually not leading the discussion today. I'm not going to actually be talking very much at all. You guys are the ones leading the discussion today. If you've taken a look at the agenda, the balance of the conversation today is on small group discussions around some key questions. But before we get to that, may I ask how many people in this room had a chance to read and review the concept note that we've developed and shared? Raise show of hands. Okay, a decent number of people. One of the things, we've given a decent amount of information in the concept note about the high-level areas of the program, and if you take a look at the RFI, which was just released 24 hours ago, we get into a lot more detail. I wanted to actually open it up to questions and answers from people about the program itself. We actually had a conversation this morning with leaders from the private sector about some specific program design elements. What is it that we're sourcing? Who is our audience? Who are we targeting? What kind of partnerships are you looking for? And so I wanted to open it up a little bit for questions and answers at a larger level before we delve into the small group discussions. So I'll take any questions and ask the appropriate person then to answer. Yes, back here.
Thank you, Pierre Guilibert from GIZ. It's very exciting to see how the Nexus idea is being implemented through the Grand Challenge. I have a question on building synergies with the other Grand Challenge, powering agriculture, this so-called energy Grand Challenge on powering agriculture. Thank you.
Lala, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So GIZ is a partner of ours on another grand challenge. This is actually the 5th grand challenge that we're launching, and so it's an excellent question. I think one is that these are iterative, and so every time we do a grand challenge, we learn about the process of selection, the criteria, and what's really required to accelerate innovation. And so lessons learned across grand challenges is one key way in which we think that we'll gain from past experiences. In terms of innovative financing, we're also considering putting together a joint innovative financing mechanism for all of the innovators coming out of grand challenges and other programs that we have. That's very much in the beginning stages, but it's one way in which we think we can create kind of efficiencies of scale.
Any other questions about the program writ large? Yes, over here.
Hi everyone, it's Simon from IKEA. I had a question about what role you see large companies like IKEA playing in a partnership like this.
Yeah, I can start and then Lala might want to continue. But we think that large companies can play a big role in this initiative as mentors, for example, for the entrepreneurs, as buyers of their techniques, maybe, and also maybe be part in this initiative as advisors on the advisory committee. So there are several ways for a large company to engage, and I hope we'll get more ideas also out of these discussions. But maybe Lala would like to complement.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. I think there's a role for all of us in this, and we've realized that we don't know everything that we need to know in order to achieve our goals, and we don't have all the right skills and expertise. And so Anne Charlotte, I think, touched upon a really important point in terms of mentoring. We need, these small businesses. We don't know what it requires to grow and scale and enter into new markets and understand consumers. And so your ability to do that and to mentor these folks is really important. We think in terms of even choosing the right innovators, it could be interesting to have corporate representatives or private sector representatives on the panels to help us judge the innovators. And in terms of structuring our financing correctly and ensuring that we play a catalytic role for external forms of financing, for things that might result, such as licensing agreements, et cetera, that's another role that we think would be important for the private sector.
We have a question back here.
Thanks. Very interesting initiative. My name is Lennart Silvis from the Netherlands Water Partnership. It's an initiative by USAID and Sweden, and we've talked about those companies who can come up with their ideas. The question I have is, in which way, I didn't have a chance to go through the document, I'm sorry, but I did see the long country list. So I'm wondering, in which way do you involve the countries themselves or the representatives of governments or regional organizations, etc.? So local involvement, how is it guaranteed?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We've realized that, if anyone else would like to jump in, please go ahead. But that's a really good question. So to clarify, the innovators can come from anywhere. They must be implementing in developing or emerging countries, the DAC 1, 2, 3 list. We think that local presence is very important, and so they either have to have a local presence on the ground in the countries in which they would like to work, already established, or they have to have local partnerships. So that's a criteria that we are looking for. I think in addition to that, we talked a little bit about acceleration support, and as part of that acceleration support, we would like to create those linkages, for distribution partnerships, manufacturing partnerships on the ground, but also, of course, with local government, because that's extremely important in order to facilitate the adoption and dissemination of these innovations.
What was the question back here? Is there a question back here? No? Oh, sorry. Knew who's somewhere back here.
Thank you. My name is Jacob Grant for the Stockholm Environment Institute, and there were two questions on the different role of different actors, and I represent the research and development organization. So we also, from that perspective, would like to know how you see the overall perspective of the role of research and development in this space. I mean, what's the opportunity to link up with the private sector in that type of partnerships? Because you can't really see it now as a work stream. if you want to support innovation. But in general, it's a great initiative to move forward, but sort of that aspect. And the second sub-question to that, how set is the design right now, and how much can we contribute to today in the design of the actual call, if I get it correctly? Thank you. Those two questions.
I think Charlotte actually has.
I won't be very specific, so you might want to compliment. But I'd like to kind of respond to a little bit of the overall issue. How do we, as the leaders of this initiative, galvanize on the different initiatives and secure that we are not duplicating and not fragment all the initiatives around water and other development actions? And I think for SIDA and for me, it's very important to work together with USAID and others on really using the platforms that are now actually being built from the different grand challenges and use them also as platforms for advocating on issues that we see that comes up from these initiatives but may not be the purpose of each and every initiative as such. So we have a management, not challenge I would say, but a management opportunity in really managing the overall grand challenge model and be a bit clever around how we can invite and make use of the private sector and academia involvement in doing that, because we need different voices around development than just the development voice in itself. So we're looking forward to kind of build that for the future. Academia and research, I hope that this group work will answer your question about how you can enter this, because obviously there's a lot of opportunity in knowledge, managing knowledge around what is happening here. And we need to invite you to work more long-term on some of the initiatives that are being explored here. So I really think that's an issue where you can contribute, and don't see this as help us to find the entry points, because I really think that's what's needed. Development needs a lot of results and proofs and evidence. So we need each other to really go forward in this. So please feel welcome, at least.
Yeah, I just want to say to Jacob here that this is serious. We will take your ideas here and change the program accordingly if they are good and if they are improving the program. And I also want to say that this is the first workshop we have, and I think we need more of these, and even in the least developed countries, to get them involved and to get their ideas also, because this is not actually where we want to implement the project.
I think we had one more question back here.
Can I just add to that? And I would just like to say, the monitoring and evaluation of this is really, really important to us. Capturing lessons learned, taking risks, understanding our failures is an integral part of this program. And we know that we won't succeed all the time, and we think that that's okay. And so having your insights and an ability to help us evaluate it appropriately and make it better in every round and every iteration is really important. And just to mention again some things that were said before, we're open to making this better. We know that we can, and we hope that you will help us. So,
I think we have two more questions at this table and then over here, and then we'll go to our small group breakouts.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Peter McCormick. I'm with the International Water Management Institute. And given our vision is for water for a food secure world, this is a very timely and exciting development. It's great to see USAID and SIDA, long-time partners of IMI, taking this forward. And certainly we are very interested in working out how to partner on this. One of the things also, this emphasis and the focus on solutions, that's another thing that we've been working with SEI and others around this to develop these ideas. I would like to ask a specific question around this, because it's sort of casting it back to the partners a little bit. One of the things in our work that we've been doing and finding is the sort of policy constraints around some of these things. And particularly, I'll give an example in some of the more recent work we've been doing is around sort of duty on pumps and equipment coming into the specific countries and transferring across countries in Africa and so forth. What do you see the role of USAID and SIDA in helping with those, not just developing the policies, but actually trying to change some of those policies in those specific countries. Thank you.
I can start then. Also, as I said in my speech, is that we are addressing a part of the problems, part of the chain of all the problems in the water area, and there are several other initiatives that are addressing other parts, and this is a complementary program, and I hope that the results from this program can feed into other programs, and we as donors engaged in many programs, we can also be, we can transfer the knowledge between the programs, and we are, for example, also engaged in the Water Resources Group, which is actually working with governments on policy issues, and I hope that this program can actually feed into that program and maybe vice versa.
And part of what we do is also private sector development, and within that scope we also need to tackle trade issues and boundaries, which obviously will be informed by concrete initiatives like this. So I'm trying just to say what Anne-Charlotte said, but it's also, for Sweden, I think it's important to say that water will be a priority for the Swedish government, and tackling specific issues on rules and regulations around this will be worked with, but not in this initiative, but informed by initiatives like this.
Thank you. Hi, Peter. My name is Therese Schumann Magnusson. I'm the lead policy advisor for water resources management at SIDA. It's a very crucial question you raise, and we have been discussing that back and forth. Some good responses have been given. I just want to complement with the fact that, for example, SIDA, but also USAID, is involved in many water sector programs at bilateral level. So we have a great opportunity to really work in a much more coordinated way. And part of the purpose of this Grand Challenge Fund is not only to work more cross-sector between water, food and energy, but it's also to work more integrated between the global, the regional and local level, I would say. So by, as Charlotte was saying, the findings from the outcome of this challenge fund is going to inform the bilateral programs and the abilities we have at local level to influence standards and norms.
I think we had one more question over here before we go to small group discussions.
Thank you. I'm Gene Brantley with Research Triangle Institute, large research institute in North Carolina. First of all, it's very pleasing to see this initiative emerge from USAID. We've been looking for a while at looking for the emergence of a program that focuses on water and food security. And I wanted to ask for two clarifications. The written document seems to focus primarily on technical innovations and technologies, but your comment, and Charlotte, is specifically referred to business models as well. And so I wanted to see nods that yes, that's included. And another sort of follow-on to the question about monitoring and evaluation, one of the roles that research institutes like SEI can provide is to provide rigorous data on the impact or the results of a program. Are you expecting that the monitoring and evaluation component will be included as an integral part of these various projects, or is there some external evaluation, or is it and/or? Thanks.
So in response to your first question, yes, it includes both the business models and the technologies. And we actually understand that a lot of these technologies exist, and the problems are in dissemination and adoption, which are, different kinds of problems that we need to tackle, and that is what we plan to tackle through this Grand Challenge. In response to your second question, yes, it's built in, and yes, we would have an external evaluation process as well.
Thanks, everyone. If there are additional questions, this is a period, for us to verbally share comments and questions with each other. But I also encourage you to provide comments like through the official request for information, which you can find at securingwaterforfood.org. We're asking people who respond to that to not only give general questions and ask us, what you want to ask us and give comments. We're also asking for feedback to some specific questions. And some of those questions we're actually going to talk about today. So as Anne-Charlotte mentioned, we have 3 objectives for today's meeting. The first was to really share some information about securing water for food, to give you a chance to review the concept note, to answer some of the key questions that you had about the program, how it's going to operate both at a strategic level and then once we actually get into implementation. And what we really want from you today, we had some design questions, how open are we to altering the design of this? That's really the purpose of this conversation, is to challenge some of our key assumptions, to ask ourselves whether we got some of the key elements right, and really understand how we can make the program design more responsive to the people that we want to get into the program, and how we can make those technologies and business models more appropriate than in developing and emerging countries. And then the last thing we want to talk about is how to work in partnership, whether it is with research and academia, with other institutes, with the NGO community, with the private sector. The Grand Challenge model is really founded on partnerships at all levels. And so how can we facilitate those? This is a very diverse group. We've purposefully put people at each table to the extent that we could from various sectors representing different stakeholders so that we can get an inclusive view. So the questions that we have come up with for the small group discussions, we're asking you to look at 5 things. Each one of the tables has a facilitator, and we're going to ask you for the next 60 to 70 minutes to go through those questions one at a time and have a really rich discussion around your table for each of the questions. And then after that, we're going to have lunch and then do a report out and talk about next steps and really kind of crystallize what were the key thoughts at each table that could help us make this program better, and how can we take this to the next level when we release the program on November 4th. So with that, if I can ask for one logistical change, this is a very full table. I know we're going to lose at least one person. May I ask one person from this table to self-select and go to the table in the back? I don't want to choose one of you, so I'll just ask one of you to rise in a moment and go to that table. And then other than that, I leave it to the facilitators to have everyone around the table introduce themselves and then get started with the questions. Thank you very much.